Hello!
Hello.
If you don't use the app and you just watch these videos, you might think that for the last several weeks we've been doing absolutely nothing. But of course this is a boring channel with terrible videos, so you probably use the app, you're probably aware of what's new, but just in case, that's what this video is for. We have been working on the app, we just haven't been working on videos, and that's because in about 5 days, we're going to move about halfway across the country to be closer to family. It's taking the hustle out of our side hustle.
So since our last video, we have released a handful of features, one of which is John Calvin's Commentaries. Next is a section that we're calling References to, which obviously merits explaining. I'll be doing that shortly. As well as major changes to our search bar,
Navigation bar, search bar, Omni Bar, we're not sure what to call it yet. I'm in favor of fill.
So big changes to our navigation bar, which now includes search, and I will demonstrate that shortly as well.
Which is why now we can actually call it a search bar. The difficult thing about this bar is that what we want it to be is you just type and you go, and Sarah will explain that later. But because of that, we're not sure what to call it, because if we call it the search bar, we're afraid that people will not necessarily type something like John 3:16 in it, because you would think that then it's going to search for John 3:16. But it's supposed to be magical. It's supposed to just work. And as Sarah's going to show, hopefully it does.
By the way, if you have any ideas on what to name that bar, please let us know. We're kind of leaning toward maybe Omni Bar.
Although we got that idea from Google, so we're also strongly leaning away from it. So now that we have all of these features jam-packed or preserve-packed into the app, we are working on a number of resources that we want to add. The first one is probably going to be John Brown of Haddington's Introductions to the Psalms, because that's a relatively easy one for me to add, and I'm lazy. Next up, maybe another commentary. I have a script that's importing commentaries from a certain source, and there are more commentaries from that source, so if I can get another one in without a lot of extra effort, you might see that first. But then the big project that we're working on is getting the Westminster Standards integrated, as well as the what you might call Baptist Standards. That's the 1689 Keach's Catechism and the Abstractive Principles. We are also working on the three forms of unity, for those of you who may be Dutch or have Dutch inclinations theologically. And what's going to be interesting there is the app is going to kind of take on a new personality, because right now everything rotates around the Bible. It's in a sense just a Reformed Bible study app, and we're billing it as a Reformed theology and Bible study app. So we're hoping that you'll be able to come to the site and there'll be a clear, good design that we haven't thought of yet that will let you choose, do you want to study the Bible? Do you want to study theology? But as well, you can just use the Omni Bar or fill and type in something like WCF 3.2 and go straight to the Westminster Confession of Faith, Chapter 3, Article 2. Or, John 3:16, or you can search for Philippians using fill. So that's what we're working on. We are, as I said, just about to move, so I don't know what you'll see in the next couple of weeks, but hopefully these new features are enough to get you excited.
Yeah, and then beyond that, we are planning a couple new videos after this one, whenever we can get around to it.
And whenever we have our ridiculous amount of video gear set up.
Yes.
We don't live in a void.
No.
There's a sheet back there.
One video is just some tips and tricks that you might not know about the app that kind of show off a couple little hacks, you might say.
I wouldn't say that.
He wouldn't say that.
Please don't hack the app. Hack the planet, not the app. It's an 80s thing.
Oh, okay. And then David has a video planned showing you a little bit more behind the scenes in the app, some of the nerdy details that even though some of you who aren't nerdy might actually be curious to find out how we're using new technologies to build the back end of the app.
So, with all of that said, why don't you go ahead and show our viewers the features that we've recently added?
All right. So let me start first by showing you John Calvin. And by way of example, I'm going to go to Isaiah 6. We'll click on the little light bulb icon as usual. And now you'll see here that we have both Geneva study notes and Calvin's commentaries. This will actually only show you the resources that are actually available, which conserves both space and time. Whenever Calvin mentions a verse, you can click on it to expand it and read it, because he doesn't always quote them verbatim. Sometimes he just refers to a verse. Here's Colossians 1:15, which is actually something that I want to use as an example for the next feature I want to show you, which is the references to this verse section. Which, by the way, if you can think of a better name for this, we are all ears. Basically, this section shows us anytime any resource is talking about this verse, Colossians 1:15, even if it's in Calvin's commentary or the Geneva Bible notes on a different passage. For instance, as you can see here, 1 Peter 1:21. And when you click on each reference, it also adds in the text of the verse in question so that you can read it. For instance, 1 Peter 1:21. And then it captures the whole paragraph in which the reference is made. And verse references, as you saw before, will always be underlined, so you can skim down and look for Colossians 1:15, the verse that you were studying. And if you look down a little bit further, we see the passage we were looking at in Isaiah 6 and the comments from John Calvin we just saw from that other place in Scripture. Next, I want to show you all the changes to this bar, which we are now calling the Omni Bar. As we've mentioned, if you have a better name idea, we'd love to hear it. But let's start with its new navigation capabilities. The first one is autocomplete. So if you type in LAM for Lamentations, it'll pop up with the complete word Lamentations. Next, you can also navigate directly to John Calvin's commentaries on a specific passage by typing in Calvin PS3 for Psalms 3, and that navigates right to John Calvin's commentaries. And you'll also see here that you can click on each verse to read it before you look at his commentary. So the main view there is John Calvin, and you can also see scripture alongside it. And lastly, and this is really handy on mobile, especially where the colon character is kind of complicated to type, you can actually type in, for instance, MT space 3 space 5 instead of 3:5, and it will still take you to Matthew 3:5. And now you've saved some time. And now on to the changes that we've made to this bar for search. We think this bar is super smart and does a great job of figuring out what you want to look for, but here are some tips. So I'm going to type in the word crucify, and I want to point out that you'll see here the word crucify is highlighted in all of these search results. You'll also see that if you type in crucify, it'll also show results for crucified. When you first use this search feature, it's going to score results by relevance instead of just ordering them by book, chapter, verse. And down here at the bottom, you'll see the pagination. So instead of clicking just next and previous until you find what you're looking for, you can also just click there at the bottom center and type in a page number or select it and hit enter, and it'll take you to whatever page you're looking for. And lastly, these filtering options up here, which we think are super handy. You can filter by book of the Bible. You can also search by resource. So if you just wanted to look at what Calvin says about crucify. Or you can search by occurrence instead of relevance, which is a default option, if you want to see all the results in order from Genesis to Revelation. And then as a small side note, let's say you want to search for the word Mark instead of wanting to navigate to Mark 1, which is what it would do if you just typed in Mark in the search bar. To do that, you would type in search:"Mark, and that would actually search for the text of Mark, wherever it occurs. All right, that's it for now. As usual, let us know what you think of these new features in the comments. We would love to hear your feedback, especially on those name ideas. If you can think of anything better, we'd love to hear your ideas. And like we are always saying, your input really matters to us. We really want this to be an app that you will actually use and love. So keep in touch. Let us know what you think, and we'll talk again next time.